the central protagonist of any timeline. Introduction. In the vast multiverse of interconnected timelines, one fascinating concept emerges: the idea that within each timeline, there exists a central protagonist whose existence and actions are intrinsically linked to that timeline's continuity. This central protagonist, such as Michael P. Jeremiah in our example, acts as the anchor for their respective timeline. The existence of the timeline hinges on this individual's life and actions, and without them, the timeline would ostensibly cease to exist. This presentation will explore the philosophical, metaphysical, and practical implications of this concept, examining its roots in literature, theory, and existential thought. The concept of the central protagonist. Definition and origin. The central protagonist, in this context, is not merely the main character of a story but rather the individual whose life and actions define the very fabric of the timeline they inhabit. This concept is rooted in various philosophical and literary traditions that emphasize the role of the individual in shaping reality. Philosophical underpinnings. From a philosophical standpoint, this idea can be linked to solipsism, the notion that only one's mind is sure to exist. In this framework, the central protagonist could be seen as the self around which all experiences and realities are constructed. Additionally, existentialism, particularly the works of Jean-Paul Sartre and Martin Heidegger, offers insights into how individuals create meaning in their lives, potentially extending this creation to the very existence of their timelines. The central protagonist in literature and media. Historical examples. Throughout history, literature and media have often centered around a single character whose journey and development are crucial to the narrative. Classic examples include Odysseus in Homer's The Odyssey. The epic journey of Odysseus is not just a story of adventure but also a narrative where his existence and actions drive the entire plot. Hamlet in Shakespeare's Hamlet. The existential dilemmas and decisions of Hamlet form the crux of the play, with the storyline intimately tied to his perspective and fate. Modern interpretations. In contemporary literature and media, the idea of a central protagonist has been explored in various ways. Neo in The Matrix. Neo's journey of self-discovery and realization of his importance to the fabric of reality mirrors the concept of a timeline dependent on its protagonist. Harry Potter in J.K. Rowling's series. Harry's existence is fundamental to the unfolding of events in the magical world, with his life and choices directly influencing the timeline's progression. Metaphysical considerations. The nature of existence. The notion that a timeline can only exist while its central protagonist exists raises profound questions about the nature of existence. If the timeline ceases upon the death of the protagonist, does this imply that all other beings and events within that timeline are mere constructs of the protagonist's reality? This line of thought intersects with theories of subjective reality and the power of consciousness. The role of consciousness. Consciousness plays a critical role in this theory. The central protagonist's awareness and perception are what sustain the timeline. This aligns with certain interpretations of quantum mechanics, where the observer effect suggests that the act of observation can influence the state of a system. Practical implications. Individual agency. If each person is the central protagonist of their own timeline, this significantly elevates the importance of individual agency. Every action, decision, and thought becomes a pivotal moment in the existence of their universe. This perspective encourages a heightened sense of responsibility and purpose. Interpersonal relationships. Interpersonal relationships gain a new dimension under this framework. While each individual is the protagonist of their own timeline, their interactions with others can create complex interdependencies. These relationships could be seen as intersections of different timelines, where the actions of one protagonist influence the timelines of others. Counterarguments and criticisms. Multiplicity of protagonists. One potential criticism is the idea that multiple protagonists could exist within a single timeline, each with their own narrative significance. Multiplicity of protagonists. One potential criticism of the central protagonist theory is the idea that multiple protagonists could exist within a single timeline, each with their own narrative significance. Literature and media often feature ensemble casts where multiple characters share the spotlight. In such cases, the narrative is driven by the collective actions and developments of several central figures rather than a single protagonist. For instance, in The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, while Frodo Baggins is a primary character, the story is deeply influenced by the actions of other key figures such as Aragorn, Gandalf, and Samwise Gamgee. This raises questions about whether a timeline can truly be said to revolve around one central protagonist when multiple characters contribute equally to its unfolding events. The existence of alternate realities. Another counter-argument stems from the theory of alternate realities and parallel universes. If every individual is the central protagonist of their own timeline, then theoretically, infinite timelines could exist where different versions of events and interactions occur simultaneously. This idea challenges the uniqueness of any single protagonist's timeline, suggesting instead a vast multiverse where each person is central only within their specific reality. This multiverse perspective is often explored in science fiction and theoretical physics, where the notion of infinite possibilities coexisting raises complexities about the singular importance of any one timeline. The role of collective experience. Additionally, the role of collective experience in shaping reality cannot be ignored. Human history and societal evolution are driven by the collective actions and interactions of many individuals over time. If a timeline's existence is tied solely to one central protagonist, it undermines the interconnectedness and shared experiences that define human existence. This collective consciousness is exemplified in historical movements, cultural developments, and societal changes that are the result of collaborative effort rather than individual actions alone. Philosophical implications. Solipsism and individual reality. The central protagonist concept shares parallels with solipsism, which posits that only one's mind is sure to exist, and everything else is a construct of the individual's consciousness. If the timeline depends on the central protagonist, this implies a solipsistic worldview where reality is subjective and personal. However, solipsism faces criticism for its inability to account for shared experiences and objective reality. The idea of a single central protagonist similarly risks oversimplifying the complexity of existence and the multifaceted nature of reality. Existentialism and meaning. Existentialism, particularly as articulated by philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Martin Heidegger, emphasizes the creation of meaning through individual existence. The central protagonist, in this sense, embodies the existentialist notion of forging one's path and defining one's reality. However, existentialism also acknowledges the absurdity and inherent meaninglessness of the universe, suggesting that while individuals create meaning, this does not necessarily bestow cosmic significance on their timeline. The central protagonist concept must therefore grapple with the existentialist tension between personal meaning and universal indifference. Psychological perspectives. The ego and self-perception. From a psychological standpoint, the central protagonist can be linked to the concept of the ego and self-perception. Each person naturally views their life from their own perspective, with themselves as the focal point. This egocentric view is crucial for identity formation and self-understanding. However, an inflated sense of one's centrality can lead to narcissism and a diminished capacity for empathy. Balancing the idea of being the central protagonist with an awareness of others' perspectives is essential for healthy psychological development. The Hero's Journey. Joseph Campbell's monomyth, or The Hero's Journey, provides a useful framework for understanding the central protagonist. According to Campbell, many myths and stories share a common structure where the hero embarks on an adventure, faces trials, and returns transformed. This narrative arc resonates with the concept of a central protagonist whose journey shapes the timeline. However, Campbell's model also emphasizes the universality of this journey, suggesting that everyone experiences their own version of the hero's journey, thus democratizing the notion of central protagonism. Implications for personal development. Embracing responsibility. Viewing oneself as the central protagonist of a timeline encourages a sense of responsibility for one's actions and decisions. It highlights the importance of personal agency in shaping one's reality and the broader world. This perspective can be empowering, fostering a proactive approach to life where individuals recognize their potential to influence outcomes and create meaning. Fostering empathy and connection. While the central protagonist concept emphasizes individual significance, it also underscores the interconnectedness of different timelines. Recognizing that others are the central protagonists of their own timelines fosters empathy and a deeper understanding of shared human experiences. This dual awareness can lead to more meaningful relationships and a stronger sense of community. Navigating existential challenges. Understanding oneself as the central protagonist also involves confronting existential challenges such as the search for meaning, the inevitability of death, and the nature of existence. This perspective encourages individuals to engage with these profound questions, potentially leading to greater self-awareness and philosophical insight. Conclusion. The concept of the central protagonist within any timeline presents a compelling framework for understanding individual significance and the nature of reality. Rooted in philosophical, literary, and psychological traditions, this idea highlights the centrality of personal experience while also raising important questions about the interconnectedness and multiplicity of existence. Whether viewed as a metaphor for personal agency or a literal interpretation of subjective reality, the notion of a central protagonist offers a rich terrain for exploration and reflection. In acknowledging the potential criticisms and counterarguments, we can appreciate the complexity and nuance of this concept. Ultimately, the central protagonist idea serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of individual perspective, the creation of meaning, and the interconnected tapestry of human experience. By embracing this role, individuals can navigate their timelines with greater intentionality, empathy, and philosophical depth, contributing to a richer understanding of themselves and the world around them.